Hello. Have you wondered if you are truly embodied? And have you been aware of why is this connection with yourself so important as being someone that is part of the social tissue? Well, these are some of the questions that motivated me to invite today's guest. She's Rae Johnson. She's a PhD from the University of Toronto. She has held academic positions in several somatic psychology programs, including the Naropa University and Pacifica Graduate Institute. They currently teach somatic psychology at the California Institute of Integral Studies and co-direct an online certificate program in embodied social justice. Rae's research on the everyday embodied experiences of oppression has been articulated in numerous publications. So this is what our guest and me are going to talk today. I am Candia Raquel. I am the host of the Sensual Sessions Podcast. And if you are new, please go to www.centraldepoder.com, which is www.centrodepoder.com, and get yourself signed up to get these episodes delivered on your inbox weekly. So this is a space to explore sensing pleasure through your senses and moving in a way that is completely free from inhibition and full of self-expression. And we are going to explore this today in the tints of embodiment and social justice. Rae, such a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
So tell us, what is embodiment?
It's a really good question because it gets used different ways depending on who's using it and what academic discipline you're in, or what professional field you're in. I use a definition of embodiment that draws on phenomenology, which is a philosophical orientation that places how we feel inside our bodies to be the most important source of information that we have.
Yes.
So for me, embodiment is not something that we just have. It's something that we cultivate. It's a capacity. It's like a language that we become more literate at the longer we speak it and the more we interact with others through it. So in the same way that we don't have language necessarily when we're born, and when we're growing up, we learn languages. And I would say that embodiment is like a language.
Yes.
In that we can learn to explore the different facets of
Yes.
embodiment and of embodied experience the longer we practice.
Love it. Love this definition of embodiment as taking the inner sense of self as the most important source of information from ourselves and the world and ourselves in the world. And this makes me think of embodiment as the refinement of our primal language that is body. We are speaking, of course, English, and I am Mexican, so I speak also Spanish, but we all speak body. Like, we can call it body language, but like the animals speak body as well, and babies, and we can understand each other even if we come from different cultures, just to read the body of the other person. But that requires first to be able to read ourselves, to speak, to understand the language of our own fleshly experience,
Mm-hmm.
and also to have empathy for the other person, like
Yes.
being willing to sense what it means, the expression of his experience, and we sense that in our bodies, and in that way we are also touched by the embodiment of the others, which leads
Yes.
me to the question of disembodiment, of how in this hustle culture of overachievement, where everything is like every realm of our human existence is set on the frame of the productivity from
Mm-hmm.
the industrial revolution to now, and that takes the toll of disconnecting ourselves from our sense of self, from numbness. And then when we want to feel a thing, at least seems that we don't feel much. Like it happens to me, like I get a box of Dunkin' Donuts, swallow one donut as a boa, and I didn't even realize that I just ate a donut and I didn't enjoy it, and I continue eating the whole box of donuts in a very predatorial way,
Mm-hmm.
which is like just my one of my expressions of the predatorial society that we're living in. And my question is how to deal with with the overwhelming experience of self
Mm-hmm.
once we dip our toes in embodiment. Like, okay, I realize that I'm not feeling much, I am numb. I start to open myself
Mm-hmm.
and I start to feel.
Yes.
And then as I start to feel, I may realize that I have been on an embodied experience of oppression, which led me to
Mm-hmm.
numbness to
Yes.
cope with it. So
Yes.
like once we open our eyes, how can we like deal with being embodied, being in reality without being a shocking and devastating experience?
Yes. Yes. Without being overwhelmed.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I want to I want to loop back and just pick up a couple of threads from what you said, because you noted that, for example, the Industrial Revolution, but even prior to that, historically, philosophically, and culturally, we have been socialized to understand our bodies as objects, not as subjects.
Exactly.
Yeah,
As machines.
as machines. And so when you eat the box of donuts, you're putting gas in the machine. You're
Yes.
not having an experience.
Not at all.
No, nor are you supposed to, because this thing that you're giving donuts is the machine that's going to produce work and get your life done for you.
Yes, exactly, exactly. And now I
Yeah,
want to cry.
because
It's true. It's true. It's alienation.
and and the grief that comes up from recognizing how much we've lost by treating our bodies as animals and as machines can be devastating.
Yes, yes,
So part of what becomes overwhelming is not just the pain that we tolerated by disconnecting from it, but also the grief that we've lost so much from having to live our lives disconnected from the pain that our environments produce in our bodies. Right? So there's both.
Yes, it's both.
Both the pain, for some people, that's the pain of trauma, of being treated as less than human.
Yes,
Right? Less than human because of racism or sexism or heterosexism, right? Or or ableism, some other form of social oppression causes pain. And so one of the ways to cope with that pain of being treated as less than human by your fellow human beings, and knowing that not only have you been treated that way, you're likely to continue to be treated that way. One of the solutions, and it's a fabulous solution with a high price tag, which is to disconnect from our bodies, because that's where we feel things.
yes.
So if we disconnect from our bodies and don't feel and numb, it's marvelous that we're able to do that.
Yeah, at
Because
least
it allows, at
disassociate
least,
to
yeah,
survive.
exactly. It allows us to survive something that otherwise would be intolerable and incapacitating,
Yes.
right? We couldn't function if we always felt the pain that we've had to feel,
True. Yes.
right? You can't go out through your day. You can't hold down a job. You can't raise your kids. You can't do so many things that are necessary to stay alive, feeling all the pain that you're carrying with you. So that somatic disconnection, that somatic dissociation it's a remarkable function. It's a remarkable tool. But the price is the inability to feel when we actually want to feel.
Yes. Yes. I am getting the goosebumps because I have been in wonderful moments of professional recognition or being tended by the beloved and noticing myself numb, not feeling like Candia, hey, this is a moment to be like over the
Yes.
top joyous or at least serene and loving. And you know that I'm gonna make it more like to the point. I struggle with gratitude, with feeling gratitude
Yes.
at a emotional and physical level. Luckily, I am humble enough and also I am like aware enough to realize that I am super lucky. Like I
Mm.
I am privileged in so many ways. And and yeah, like I am alive and that's
Yes.
like a blessing. But the other amount of stuff that have dealt in my personal life, and even if I had like the perfect cocoon of personal life, like what we see that is going on like with a neighbor or on the country that is our neighbor too, it's like
Yes.
enough to spoil the party, like because pain and grief and disappointment in a way have a tone of absolute experiences, while happiness and gratefulness and joy and even pleasure are not a 100% experiences. And I feel, well, that's something I am just like throwing from the top of my head, but there's always like a tint of a beautiful sadness even in the greatest of the moments, because we know that everything is gonna die. And even though if you have a wondrous life and you get to see change in the world, you know that our passing through life is very ephemeral, and that's a reason to be a little bit sad. So I feel that for the pleasurable things in embodiment, there's always like a little something that makes it not total, and that is challenging to embrace because this materialistic culture we live in, it's about absolutes, it's about yes or no. It's dualistic. You are rich or poor, or either you are successful or a loser, or you're a man or a woman in this binary
Mm-hmm.
sense, or you are smart, or it's like, when in reality is super complex, especially
Yes.
in our humanness. So yeah, how to sensitize ourselves, uh how can we, yeah,
Mhm.
because just to close this idea, I feel that in a way, like you said, it's a blessing that we can disassociate and that we can disconnect, because we can in some way endure the hardships of this
Mhm.
society and our personal history. And that gives me hope, in the sense that it's like a crutch to buy us time, so we get to sort our situation, our life,
Mhm.
personal situation, our societal interactions and mandalas, to the point that we can safely feel.
Yes.
So yeah, what do you think about it?
So I think the first thing that's important to point out here is that emotion lives in our bodies. Emotions are a form of sensation, of physical sensation.
Wow. Yes, definitely.
They're not cognitive events.
They are not cognitive events. Emotions are physical sensations.
Yes.
I'm gonna get a tattoo of the definition, because that's the thing. My cognitive gratitude, it's not the emotion of gratitude.
Yes.
And it's good that at least I am grateful for the great things, that I realize that I have I realize that I have reasons to be grateful,
Yes.
though I don't feel grateful many of the times. And then I feel guilty.
Right. Right. Mm-hmm. So we can have a cognitive appraisal of
Okay.
our
Okay.
of the physical state that we're not really able to feel, but we know we should, and we suspect that in there somewhere I'm sad, or in there somewhere I'm angry, right? We can, most of us are capable of cognitive appraisals of
Yes.
the physical sensation of
Yes.
emotion.
Yes.
We're just not in, we're not feeling the physical sensation of emotion because our, the muscles that we've developed and the neural pathways that we've developed to disconnect from those sensations, those pathways are too strong. They're too well established, right? So you asked earlier, how do we begin to reclaim sensation and
Yes.
emotion without being overwhelmed?
Yes. Which sounds quite rebellious in our day and era.
It's absolutely revolutionary, absolutely revolutionary to be able to say, I am no longer going to disconnect from myself in order to be in the world. That's not acceptable. That my membership in this world should not come at the price of disconnection from myself.
Never to decide, never relinquish the connection with the self, the fleshly
Right,
self.
right. That's
It's like a reclaiming of
absolutely.
a reclaiming of our life, our sovereignty, because we may think that we are free because we are not slaved,
Yes.
even though we are, in a way, metaphorically quite chained to a desk, oftentimes.
Mm-hmm.
But we are not really free if we have subdued our subjective and also physiological experience of ourselves in order
Yes,
to comply.
exactly.
And if we do comply, then we are being part of the problem, because then we relate
Uh-huh.
to the rest of the world from that standpoint, from that state of being alienated. While
Mm-hmm.
this reclaiming of the self, it's like, I don't know, like first of all, it's an act of maturity, of saying, okay, I am the authority of myself and my life. And that comes also with the responsibility of myself, my experience, and my interactions. So
Mm-hmm.
it's no longer like being the little kid that just by default obeys the authority, like the collective unconscious or whatever, like ship operating system.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that we know from people who have endured incredible hardship, imprisonment, concentration camps, like really, really severe, significant infringement on their liberty. One of the things that we've learned from many of those people who've had those experiences is that their survival depended on their unwillingness to surrender an essential core part of themselves. So if we're trading that for something that other people are calling freedom, we've lost it.
We've lost it.
Yeah, right. We need to understand what getting along in modern society costs us. And we have to ask ourselves the question, are we willing to continue to pay that price? And my argument is, if you paid that price, what's the point?
What's the point? Because it's paying a bet to lose.
Yes,
It's a losing game. And it's like selling your soul to the devil. And
exactly, to have something that you think that you need. And that, I mean, I need to restate, disconnecting from the felt experience of our bodies can be a necessary, temporary, even though it may feel like it takes us a long time to get to a place where it's safe to feel again, because that's a trauma response, right? So even though it may take a long time, at some point, I think it's essential that we wake up enough to ask ourselves the question, is it safe now?
is it safe now? And if it's safe, that's the moment.
And 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 am I really appraising the safety of my current moment accurately? Because the other thing that can happen is that we carry our felt sense of this is not safe with us into new environments where, in fact, the punishment is not there, or the consequences are not negative, that we actually could afford to feel, but we don't, because we've misappraised the situation. We've misappraised the present moment because we've carried our past with us.
Yeah, if we carry our past with us, we make the past our experience of present. So
Yes.
this makes me also feel that, like Anais Nin said in one poem, that the moment came that it was not possible to stay tight in the
Yeah.
bud, and then it bloomed, something like that.
Yes. Yes.
So like
The pain
opening,
of staying so tightly furled was
yeah,
worse than the pain of blooming.
yeah. So
Mm.
the goosebumps again. So yeah, it takes like a reclaiming of life. Like it's not like a piece of cake to just open. Like ideally it should, but after coming from our own experiences, or even harder experience of imprisonment, um, concentration camps, it's a deliberate act and claim of life, like to
Yes.
open and
Yes.
trust, and then take an active part in shaping the experience of the moment and the environment. Like, okay, I am assessing that is safe. The only thing that is not safe is the imprint of the past experiences.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
I'm gonna change that. I'm gonna override the pattern by by constructing another habit. Maybe safety, the sense of safety and trust and openness. It's a construction as well,
Yes.
and an embroidery, and it's also a social construct that we thread in a collective tapestry that
Yes.
sustains us all, or
Yes.
the threading of a basket that embraces us. But that starts with this not not surrendering the the sense of self
Yes. Yes. It starts with that decision or that commitment.
with that decision, with that commitment.
Mm-hmm.
This is so important, because especially in regards to the Sensual Sessions podcast, this collective project, like there's no way to sense pleasure when we are numbed. And
Yes.
we are often numbed as part of a protection mechanism to to endure pain, emotional,
Mm-hmm.
physical, circumstantial, historical, cultural pain. So the process of embodiment opens the doors to the inner dungeons as well,
Mm-hmm.
to pleasure. So I am loving, like like the fire in this spirit of reclaiming the spirit, the experience of the self, as complex, griefful, and even contradictory
Mm-hmm.
as it is. Or maybe once we have like accurately assessed that we are safe to open up, and then like we may we may be more able to allow the undone and unbound aspects of ourselves. Like we are undone because like we are always like recreating ourselves, as long as we
Mm-hmm.
from this numbness. And also like not wait until we have solved all of our traumas and saved the world in order
Mm-hmm.
to come to the body and experience life. We can do that now, as long as it's safe.
I'm gonna argue that not only should we not be waiting until everything is okay before we feel, that feeling is what makes things okay.
Feeling is what makes things okay, because of course then we have a clear marker of what's going on.
Yes.
Like we know we are safe because we feel safe. And even though everything might seem safe, if we are in touch with our own sensations and we don't feel safe, it actually means that we are not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing that I just want to say is to come back to your question a little bit more about, so how do we begin this reclaiming process?
Yes.
The point is not to feel all of our emotions 100% all the time.
Okay.
The point is to have some choice,
Okay. So we can
is
have
to,
choice in our emotions.
yes, absolutely. And we can feel a little bit or a lot. We can choose to our timing. We can go back to right now to, this afternoon. I'm going to numb, but, after I've come home and had dinner and have some quiet time, I'm going to start to feel some of those things that I didn't feel comfortable feeling later, earlier in the day. It's about choice.
Wow. It's about choice. And in choice lays freedom.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Exactly. That we can't be free if we're not free to choose to feel.
Yes, and part of the reclaiming of this freedom is in the choice of not feeling some stuff yet.
Yeah,
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 of course,
yeah. And
of course.
this is a whole realization. Like we are not slaves of our emotions and experience because, like, we have so much choice that we have numbed ourselves and disembodied ourselves in our society.
Yes.
So, so we can choose how much to open to our fleshly
Hmm.
experience
We
according to
should choose, not
yeah,
just we can choose how much to open. We should.
we
We
should
should be choosing. It should not just be, okay, I'm going to, get back into my body. I'm just going to open the floodgates.
open the floodgates and then drown everyone around
And
with,
yourself.
because that's another thing. Like I am really thankful for my friends that have survived my flood when I have like not now, but in when I first started to open up, like
Yes.
yeah, like they were like, oh no. But I feel that we, we are lucky to have all these experiential self possibilities, capabilities, and,
Yes.
and even more lucky to realize that we have and that we have always had freedom.
Yeah. We are wondrous creatures.
We are wondrous creatures.
Yeah.
Ah, I love this a lot. I love this a lot.
In
Thank you
in a
very much.
world full of other wondrous creatures.
In a world full of other wondrous creatures.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, opening to our own felt sense opens us to the felt sense of others and even understand that not everything is personal
Yeah.
and we are in this together and every one of us ripples our personal experiences is molded by the environment, but we do mold the environment and
Mm-hmm.
and in a way that is beyond words and that is expressed quite directly as presence through this language of embodiment.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Okay. I would like to continue talking with you ad infinitum, but I would like to wrap up asking you, like, I don't know, uh, an exercise or an inspiration for embodiment. How can we become embodied and then be part of this activism of reclaiming the self and and influencing simply by example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, I think the exercise that I recommend the most, particularly for people who are just starting this process, who are just beginning to consider that maybe they want to feel more in their bodies is not to actually start with emotions.
Okay.
But to start with, there are three territories. There's a number of territories, but there are three territories of embodiment that I often like to describe. One is what we feel inside our bodies, what we feel in our guts and our hearts, right?
Right.
Our capacity to feel movement, to feel ourselves moving.
Okay.
Right? And then there are the senses outside, our hearing, our sight, our sense of taste and smell and touch.
Okay. Yes.
And most of us have preferences. We have sensory channels that we like, that we're comfortable with. And so as an exercise, I would just invite people to consider, are there sensory channels that feel comfortable, that feel pretty safe, that feel exciting or interesting? And start with that, just a little bit. So maybe if you feel pretty comfortable inside, maybe you just throughout the day take a moment and notice your breath. And notice that I'm saying notice your breath, like feel your breath. Enjoy one or two breaths. And then stop and go about your day. But take one or two breaths where you can actually feel like, oh, that feels good to get, and you'd feel your in between your shoulder blades expanding a little bit. It's like, oh yeah, that was a nice breath. Do two nice breaths.
Yes.
Or if you like movement, if that feels like your channel, just in the moment when you're walking from point A to point B, take a moment and feel the sensation of your feet on the ground. And just like, wow, feeling that. And feel how my feet are like flexing, and I'm changing my relationship to gravity as I'm moving forward, and feeling your hips, rotating in the socket, and notice how your spine kind of moves along and how your head balances, and your arms are swinging, and just take some pleasure.
Yes.
As you're walking from the grocery store to your car, just take a moment and enjoy the sensation of walking.
Yes.
And if that's not comfortable, if that's too much about the body, if that's too much feeling, too much sensation for you, smell something nice. Or notice, the sound of a bird outside the window. Go, that's a lovely sound. Just enjoy sensation.
Enjoy sensation.
Yeah.
Yeah. In a normal and even a sort of mundane way, without making a whole thing about retreat and spiritual enlightenment, and like sense your breath, like
this is really basic.
A flower, like, yeah, it's as basic as being human. That's what it's about.
That's just it. Because if you can imagine someone living in the world with other people, engaging with other people, who was fully capable of enjoying their breath and enjoying the feeling of their feet on the ground, enjoying the sensation of movement, enjoying touching one another and feeling the pleasure of that touch, enjoying the sounds and the sights and the quality of light streaming in a window. Can you imagine how rich their lives would be?
Yes.
How rich their experience would be.
Yes.
And so I always recommend add some pleasure.
Add some pleasure.
Don't go in there looking for the pain and the grief. We know it's there. It will come.
It can wait there.
You need to build up some capacity for pleasure.
For pleasure.
And to enjoy sensation. And then you will build capacity, you will build muscles, so that when the grief comes, or the fear comes, or the memories come, right? That you've got some strength to deal with them because you've built some capacity. And that after you've felt some sadness or some grief or some rage and it's been difficult, you can go back to some pleasure.
Yes.
And you've got some pleasure to go back to.
Yeah. Pleasure is a safe place.
Yeah. And it's necessary.
And it's necessary. And like listening that you build capacity for pleasure, and then you gather strength to then
Yes.
face the difficult emotions. And this is the first time I absolutely realize that. How do you build strength? Through pleasure. it's
Yes.
it's through pleasure. Like, if we are able to endure the worst of the things, it has been because there was a little thread connected to the volcanic magma of life force, and that little thread is pleasure. So
Yeah.
pleasure is our connection. It's strength itself, because pleasure is it's a bodily experience of health that we often take for granted. But by tending to pleasure, by cultivating, we we are strengthening, we are building strength
We're
to
building, we're building capacity for
capacity.
embodiment.
We're building capacity for embodiment through pleasure.
Yes.
and
Yes.
and it's through this strength that then we say, like, oh wow, birds are chirping, like the summertime song. I
Mhm.
love Miles Davis version. And like, yeah, like, wow, I can see the clouds from the window, and I can even feel the my heart pumping blood in my neck.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
then there's a delicious scent of tacos in the kitchen, and
Mhm.
my sweater is so cozy and so soft. And it's like what we were talking about of gratitude, the emotion and the sensation of gratitude, not just the cognitive uh, understanding or of
Mhm.
motivation, that there are reasons, but what gratitude is. And then we may discover that we are also living in a wondrous world, in a magnificent experience.
Yeah.
And if we welcome that, that will also strengthen us to cope with the challenges and the difficulties and the many wounds that may never heal. And
Yes.
all that we may do is protect them and clean them often, and like
Mhm.
the at the sore spots of the world as well. So then pleasure, it's not just a luxury, but is
No.
a fundamental part of our body experience.
Yes.
Yes. I am so happy to talk with you, Ray, and I am sure the sensualist to tell us, how can we learn more about your work? How can we learn directly from you?
Um, the best way to learn more about who I am and the work that I do in the world is to go to my website, which is Rae Johnson, Somatic.com. I have a couple of books out recently. The most recent you mentioned already, I think, Embodied Activism,
Yes.
and it's available pretty much any bookstore and online very widely. Um, in terms of learning with me directly, I teach in a PhD program in California. And so unless you're a doctoral student of mine, there aren't a whole lot of opportunities to learn with me, except I every once in a while will do trainings or conferences and workshops. But I usually have some links to those events on my website. So that's the best place to check out what I'm doing.
Thank you so much, Ray.
Yeah,
Really,
you're very
really
welcome. It was a
happy
pleasure.
having you at the Sensual Sessions. And also, thank you, Sensualist, for being here. So go to the US and become a PhD The student of Rae, I believe that somatic embodiment and embodied activisms are topics like this is just a taste of something that could be a lifelong study arena with endless surprises. And
Mhm.
also, you can learn from her at her website, raejohnsonsomatic.com. Continuously, raejohnsonsomatic.com. And also, if you haven't already, please go grab the free guide to awaken sensuality at my website, centraldepoder.com. That's in Spanish. And it's www.centrodepoder.com. So until next time, remember to sense your fire so you can share the flame.